All right, I'm just. It's just one piece of bad news after another. So, apparently, no free lunch. You know, all of those millions of children who don't, who can't afford meals. They can't afford to eat. Those children that are on the free lunch, the free and reduced lunch program. This, I don't even want to call that a leadership. This monstrosity in charge is now going to pull meal funding for schools, the schools that don't comply with its LGBT, so on and so forth agenda. Now it's like QA plus plus whatever. So, this administration is requiring schools to comply with its policies, or they'll lose billions in federal funding for their lunches, their school lunches. So, if the schools don't agree, then they can just go hungry. Now, they make it sound like it's the LGBTQ whatever plus community that they are fighting for, or so to speak, that they're saying if the school doesn't agree with that bill, then the children won't get to eat. For the children that can't afford it won't get to eat. They're making it sound like it's about that LGBT bill. About that. It's not even about LGBT. It's not even about that. This is about the whole transgender athlete thing. About this man, he was a male, and he says on the inside he suddenly feels like a female. And he decided to go play female sports. That would be like me going and suddenly saying, I want to play in the women's division, I want to play in the women's sports, and just beating the crap out of all the opponents. That... It's absurd. And then you see these hairy men wearing dresses with 5-6-year-old children in their lap, and that's fine to our government. I was going to search it, but I don't even want to search it to begin with. It was just creepy. It was a bunch of men in California with children wallowing all over them, and then people dressed in demonic outfits and things, dressed with horns all over, and reading in a library several years ago, when they do that yearly as a pride thing. They call it pride. It was drag and trans and stuff. Well, there's a difference between drag and trans. I know that. Drag is different. That's when men dress up as women and just put makeup on and change the clothes and all that. And I know that one of my subscribers said, explain the difference, and I know that I knew it already. I knew the difference regardless. And then there's the people who feel like their soul or spirit is a different. And even the old Native American Indian prophecy said, the Hopi Indian prophecy says that people will be in the wrong bodies and even house many spirits in these times. But it was the blue and red Kachina prophecy. You can look that up. But biblical prophecy is definitely coming true. But you can see the time of lawlessness, for one thing. You can see the craziness. Why do these laws have to affect our children? Our children and they're going to say, well, they're taking the food away from me. They're taking the nourishment, the drinks away from me, so I'm being punished, so there must be something wrong. Or I don't know what to think anymore. So this doofus, whatever you want to call this guy just signs this bill. I'm livid about this crap. I'm tired of seeing it. Lord help us. Lord help us. So Mama just told me about that earlier, that he's now He signed that bill where if the school doesn't comply to allow men into women's sports and compete against females, males against females, and females into male sports and compete against them, then they'll lose their lunch privileges. Children are going to lose their much needed nourishment, where they may not even get a meal otherwise, but they're going to starve them. They're going to starve them. They're going to do that if the schools that don't agree with that bill, they're calling it anti-LGBTQ. That's not an anti-LGBTQ when you don't want a large muscular male to compete in women's sports and given an unfair advantage, or a female to compete in male sports and completely get just, or when they start taking hormones or change their body, change their genetics. Even when people have completely gone through the transition, they can still take the steroids to make themselves strong like them. It's just... And there are people out there that say, yes, that their soul is, they have a different soul, but they're just going to keep the body they have. I guess if that's, I mean, I guess that happens. You can have a different soul or feel that you're different, but you can house a different spirit in your body and don't want to change yourself because you feel like you're meant to be who you are. But to go through that, and yet the government is paying. We had to pay our medical bills. We have to pay our medical bills, whether we can afford them or not. We have to pay these medical bills. They have a $3,000 deductible, and if you can't afford to pay, and we've already ran up $17,000 in bills, and that's just the beginning, in hospital and medical bills, ER fees and everything else, tests. And if we can't afford to pay that, then, well, we're just in for it. But, and you know, we have to pay. They said, you got to pay it regardless. And yet, someone can have the government pay them to go through a transition? Come on. Or someone can come over here without any documentation and have vehicles, housing, food, nourishment provided for them. They get food stamps and cards and debit card and just a free ride. I see it all the time. I'm seeing it now more than ever. People come over here and they get a free ride completely, and meanwhile we're struggling, suffering. Or if you say you are of that community that I just mentioned, you're treated like royalty, or you're walked around, tiptoed around, and treated like you're, and people that don't, if everyone wants to be treated equally, then why ostracize a certain group of people? Why not just move along with your life, have your communities, and move along with your life, and act like you're no different? If we don't want to be treated differently in this world, no, if we don't want people to be treated differently, then don't ostracize yourselves. And secondly, holding the lunches, holding the food, withholding free and reduced lunches, that is pathetic. Withholding free lunches, the free lunch program will be withheld from what they call schools, according to the federal civil rights laws provision against discrimination based on your sex, includes designations of sexual orientation and gender identity. So basically now, if some big bulky guy wants to suddenly say he can go into the girls' locker room, or vice versa, and there have been a few cases of rape. The guy went into the girls' locker room and there was rape involved. Rape took place. Violence took place. You're just asking for trouble. But moving on from that, so basically, some big bulky guy who puts on a dress can claim that he's suddenly and you can see that guy in the Olympic sports, and you can see that guy that's claiming to do the water aerobics. You can clearly see he outswims them by a mile, by a long shot. He is like he's He's got the figure and the body of a male. He has the testosterone, everything. And then he tries to say, never his whole life, never his entire life did he have a problem saying he was male. And suddenly he says, oh, I'm female now. I want to compete in women's sports. Because it's going to give a scholarship. Think about it. Our government is so stupid. Basically, those people who want to get a competitive edge, who want to get ahead in the sports, they're going to get free college scholarships because of claiming their identity of what they are, or saying, I'm gonna suddenly compete in female sports even though I'm a big bulky male. I'm gonna have a complete competitive advantage, and I'm going to use my muscular ability to get ahead, and they're going to use their ability to outrun them by a long shot. They're gonna outpace them by big time. So basically, they're just using that and saying, and they said later, if they decide to change their identity back, they can. They can say, oh, I'm this now. It's just whatever you feel you are at the moment. What the heck? There was one high schooler that did that so that he could compete in female sports. I forgot which state it was, but he identified as female so that he could go into the girls' locker room. And as one of the radio hosts said, that many people would have done that back in the high school years if they could get by with that back in their school years. And he said, you'll be seeing a lot of people claiming to be so-and-so just so they can go into the restrooms or locker rooms that aren't their identity, aren't their actual gender. I saw one case scenario where this guy went to the women's restroom claiming he said, oh, I identified that way, and then he raped someone. That's completely wrong. Followed some young child in there. I think it was a really young person. I think it was. I don't remember where it was, but I think they were like, can't remember whether they were like 10 or what it was, but they claimed to be, the person said, well, they were that identity, and he claimed in court that he identified as a 10-year-old because he raped the 10-year-old, basically, and he claimed to identify as a 10-year-old in his mind. It's insane. But then there was this one high school student that wanted to get a full ride scholarship based on sports, so they took water aerobics and swimming and competed against the other females and claimed they identified as female until they were done, and they went on and they got their scholarship. They're going to use this to get their scholarship and then, claim back to being what their birth gender is. It's... what is going on? I don't know. I guess confusing biblical times. That's what. All right, signing out. I mean, taking the school lunch program, taking the free and reduced lunch, removing no more free lunch, no free lunch to the schools that don't allow someone to say that they identify as what they feel at the moment. No more free lunches to the schools that don't think it's right for students to say suddenly they identify this way and they're going to compete in the opposite sports and then get a competitive edge, or going to go into the opposite. You know what I'm saying? All right, I'm tired of talking about it. But to deny students their free lunches, their free meals, who are already struggling and having financial struggles, having financial issues, when they're meanwhile just giving food, giving shelter, transportation, and sustenance to those that come over here with a free ride and to those they decide to give it to. Tired of it. I'm sure you all are too. Lord, Savior, I call upon your name to just bring balance and justice and healing, forgiveness to this crazy world. Give us a leadership that will go in your direction. We call upon your holy name right now because we need you more than ever. In these times of crisis, we know you're coming soon. Amen. It's just, if I were a parent of a child, I'd be furious right now. In these states, the president's so-called prez signs a bill saying no reduced lunch, no free lunch for the students of the schools that don't feel like someone should be able to say, I identify this way today and compete in the opposite sports or go into the opposite. You get the point. Signing out.